everyone. This is Hazel Findlay, and you're listening to the Strong Mind podcast. In this episode, I chat to Aiden Roberts. So this episode was actually recorded a while back now, I think in September or October of last year, and we published the first part of that conversation around then. So if you've not listened to it, I definitely recommend going and checking it out. It's one of the top 3 most listened to episodes, I think. And this is the second part of that same conversation where we focused on mastery and flow, but we also covered goal setting, projects, and focusing tools, among other things. Since this podcast was recorded, Aiden actually started doing some coaching with me, and he's also sent some more hard boulder problems, including a 9A called Alphane. So perhaps we should get him back on the podcast to see what's changed for him over the past 8 months, where he's been focusing even more on mastery, mental training, and pursuing even bigger challenges in outdoor bouldering. He also has a recent film out at the moment called Mastery, and I think you can find that on YouTube. All right, I hope you enjoy this conversation, and as always, thanks for listening.
Yeah, I'm happy as much as you've got things to talk about and have answers. I'm happy to keep going.
Well, it would be cool to maybe just like finish up with that bit on project. I think, because I don't know how much you seem really reflective about yourself as a climber, but I don't know how much you observe other people, but like as a coach, it's kind of my job. And like now I have this real habit of like observing what other people do and how they approach the sport. And like this like kind of negativity trap that people get into with projecting, like you just see it so often. Like people just like seem to hate their world, a lot of the time with projecting. And I've been there. Like I've definitely had routes where like I just like want to have it done. It's just taking way longer than I thought. Like I'm not really enjoying it anymore. Those times have been like real learning experiences around like being more intrinsically motivated. Like I had this horrible process with this route called Concepcion. It's like this horrendous 80-meter crack. I don't know, it's on YouTube if anyone wants to see it, but I was like not that psyched on my life in that, that is like a bad time in my life somehow. And it was like I needed to do the route to like feel better or something. And it was just taking ages. And obviously that's like the worst mindset you can have, like going into something being like, I'm doing this route to like make me feel better. I mean, there's not what I went into it with, but like it soon became that,
Yeah, like you put a lot of your self-worth on this like one
kind of, yeah. More just like if I didn't do it, it would like that failure on top of like already not feeling that good would just be like really bad. And I was like fearful of what that would be like. But like, it was funny as well because like I was actually like coaching this stuff and like totally knew what was going on in my psychology. Like I was reflective enough to know that it wasn't good, but I couldn't really change it. I mean, I did in the end, and like I managed to focus and get it done and stuff. But like, I was like, I don't want to do that again. And then that same year I did Magic Line, which is like probably one of the hardest things I've ever done. And like, I was just like so focused on like not having that mindset. And so like my main like outcome for the whole process was like a mindset goal rather than like to do the route, and to do the route would have been like a bonus. Yeah. So I don't know, like, and that, like feeding back into what you were saying about following your niche versus broadening your skills. Sometimes with the people I coach, I'm like, well, what do you want to work on? What do you think are your weaknesses? And then pick goals that like expose those weaknesses. And like, then you're going to be more process oriented, right? Because if you're showing up every day and training for a project while you're actively working on these process goals and you're working on your weaknesses, it means if you don't do the project at the end of it, you'll still find all your efforts worthwhile. Yeah, like you still will have developed and grown as a climber, and like that's like the heart of mastery mindset, right? So like I wonder, like, do you pick things that develop you in that way, even though you're kind of like gravitating to what you're already good at?
like kind of almost like psychology orientated goals as opposed to like the physicality sub kind of thing.
Or not necessarily. Like your process goal could be mindset based, or it could be like I'm bad at, like, as basic as like I'm bad at slopers. I really want to improve this area of my climbing, so I'm going to pick a goal that's slopey, and then I'm going to work on my slopers to achieve that goal. But in doing so, I'm also just better at slopers at the end of it, whether I achieve the goal or not.
Yeah, yeah, and there's like satisfaction in that you made improvements in it anyway. Yeah, no, I do definitely get what you mean. I'm usually like, I say like I'm pretty like precise when I set goals, which I think is true. However, there's a lot of intuition that goes into initially setting those goals in the first place, which is why. So Burden of Dreams was really quite a strange one for me. I'd never really done that and been like, oh, I want to do this, even though I'd never tried it, or even like I didn't really know whether I would enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I think like, well, like part of the process like wasn't enjoyable in that like there was one point where I had 5 split tips and I could barely pick up a cup of tea. Like, and that bit wasn't nice. But like there were parts of it which aren't fun to try. But I think I ended up being, it was kind of almost superseded by like the intrigue of like, wow, this is something that like this exposes a real weakness for me.
Did you know it would expose that weakness before you went on it?
No, not at all. No, not at all. And like, I mean, there was no obligation for me to want to go back. Like maybe there would be some expectation, but like realistically, like I know that if I went there and tried it and then like never went back, nobody's really going to like, it's not going to like,
it's not like your sponsors are going to drop you and your followers will just be like, no.
yeah. Like it's not going to affect anyone's life. And I mean, I haven't gone back yet and I haven't really been able to, there's been reasons why like I haven't really been able to train for it anyway. I've had some injury and like kind of it being warm over the summer and stuff as well. But like I am like, I did find myself interested by it.
Do you want to go back?
Yeah, no, and I do, and not for the reason which I initially expected. I guess like the achievement of it is a certain thing because like
yeah,
I want to be able to train to be good at that start, like as in like essentially you have to be really snappy and move really quickly between the positions, which is something that like it wasn't super obvious that you'd have to do that for me before I went to it, and it's something I'm not very good at. I'm a bit like of a sloth on the wall. I look very out of place trying that thing. But it's cool. Like I was really motivated to be like, wow, this is something I do need to get way better at. I can't just like kind of get this climb and like bully it into my niche. Like I have to be better outside of my niche. And that is something that I am motivated about, but I didn't really expect. But usually with my goals, it'll be on something that I try. And it's like, it definitely it was a real challenge for me transitioning from competitions to rock climbing to be specific about my goals or even know where to start when setting them.
Yeah.
In that it's so easy in like no, comps isn't easy. Comps is really hard. And it wasn't for me. It didn't like, I'm very content I stepped away from them. But from a goal setting perspective, like it's so measurable, like, and like you have a specific date and you get a number at the end of that date and you want it to be as low as possible. And like, kind of like you pick a level, which is like achievable, but ambitious. And like, it's kind of like, obviously it's conditional on how other people do, but in many ways, like it's very easy to set a goal. Like I want to be top 10 at this event.
Could you set goals differently at comps? Like, could you have a mastery mindset in comps? Like, could you be like, I want to perform my best on that given day, on that given route?
Yeah. No, I think you definitely could. But even then, like, it's much
still
easier.
Defined by them, right? Not like you don't have to make decisions around it, right? You still just show up.
Yeah. Regardless of what your goal is, it's like you're like the medium in which you do that is like it's already prescribed to you, and even the day you do it is prescribed to you. Whereas like when you're presented with the entire world to go rock climbing in, like it's so much more self-directed.
At least like you only have 4 routes problems to choose from though, right? Because there's only 4 that are hard enough for you.
Well, no, there's the other thousands and thousands which haven't been climbed yet, which
Yeah.
I really like the puzzle of boulders. So like developing new climbs is actually, in the most part, more satisfying for me. And I know there's like probably hundreds of 9A boulders just in Ticino, was where this one in Switzerland was. So like there's no shortage of those climbs, I guess, if you're willing to put in the time and effort to do those, which is something which inspires me. But I wouldn't be like, right, my goal is there's a project here that I know like some people have tried and like looks cool. I'm like, I probably would usually, in the most part, I'd try stuff and figure out whether, like now that I'm mostly an outdoor climber, it is a bit more like experimenting, intuition. Like it's hard to know like beforehand what's going to captivate me.
So yeah, what goes into that goal setting process? Like what are the considerations?
I think usually I get pulled into trying new things anyway for like, well, like I really enjoy climbing. So like I often just want to try most stuff anyway. So I often like get pulled in just by like, that looks really cool. So like if something looks fun or like satisfying the moves, that's initially what will like kind of get me to try it. And then, yeah, I guess it's like, it's very it's very hard to reduce like my relationship with like specific projects or like goals that I have within climbing. Hard to reduce it into like single things, like or like I often don't even understand why I'm so inspired by something myself. Like there's obviously factors,
but I guess the level of inspiration is a key consideration. It sounds like.
Yeah, I think like, oh yeah, like for like the attitudes which like something would kind of stimulate within me would be like definitely passion, like as in like I'd want to feel like genuinely just like excited to try it, like feel like, so that when I'm doing it I feel quite passionate about the thing that I'm doing.
And that's that intrinsic motivation, right? It's like you just want to be there for the sake of the activity itself.
Yeah, and I think definitely if I think about like what would constitute a mindset which like would draw me into like setting that goal, I think most of them would be intrinsic.
Yeah.
I think like inevitably like being very passionate about the thing you're doing leads to like quite a positive outlook. It will like kind of help avoid like doubt about the thing that you're doing. I think I've definitely had goals in the past where like, I think when I've set goals a bit more like haphazardly and haven't really considered them, I can find that quite unsettling in that like I can have doubts along the way of like why I'm doing it. And like,
have you got an experience like that, like an example?
I think initially before I went out to Burden of Dreams, initially before I'd gone there, I didn't really know exactly why I was doing it in the first place.
Because you'd never tried it, like you didn't really know if you would be that inspired. You'd just seen the videos, right?
Yeah, which is the first time I'd done anything like that. And I definitely had my doubts. And I think partly like there was quite a few things going on. Like I wasn't in my best place in general at that point in that year. So I think I had like some doubts about
like physically or psychologically.
Both. Yeah, physically definitely I wasn't on my like best form. I think psychologically as well, I'd been a bit disturbed that year. It'd been like just a lot of personal stuff going on. And like, I think it was just as I transitioned away from my studies. So there's a lot of like uncertainty about whether I was doing the right thing as well. And like, I think I did have a lot of doubt about like just where I was at the time. And then I'd set this goal. It felt like I'd somewhat plucked it out of nowhere. I didn't really know exactly why I was doing it.
Yeah, I guess the way when you're that good at bouldering, those challenges, like there aren't that many of them. So it's almost like it's not that out of nowhere, right? Because the pool of things that are like going to really challenge you is fairly small.
Yeah.
You're like, whereas if I'm like, if I want to find an 8A boulder problem, for example, like like I would probably, I might have to pluck it out of no, like it's not completely out of nowhere for you because the pool's just so small, I guess.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Yeah, no, yeah, I do kind of agree with that. But I mean, like at the time, I wasn't really sure why I wanted to like. Maybe I had doubts about even why. Like I was so inspired by like raw difficulty alone or like mastery for more relevance to the conversation. But yeah, I think one thing that I am quite good at is like a bit of like perseverance. So I can usually be like quite disciplined when I commit to something. So despite the uncertainty of like the goal I'd set itself, part of setting a goal, obviously like you can set a goal, but I'm quite careful about optimizing, like bridging the gap between where I am and where I want to be, like, or quite like strategic about it anyway. So I had like set the goal kind of on like fragile foundations, but being like very careful about like the bridge I'd then built to get there. And so I like kind of would hold myself do that, and I do all of that. And I think it was interesting about like the role in which mindset plays in this, because like I prescribed set training and like that was like in preparation for it. And I had like some complications, just like injuries and things. But I think my mindset towards it wasn't particularly like, I wasn't positive about it, I think.
Right.
And I had this like training, which like I usually can like respond quite well to training, and especially like in recent times, it's gone a lot better for me. But perhaps as like was an indicator of the role in which like psychology had in that like I didn't feel like on my best form when I went out there. I definitely like wasn't climbing at my best, despite having like a real chunk of time committed to training for this. And even though maybe like the stimulus was pretty similar, like I think I went into that with a very different attitude to like goals I have trained for in the past. Like I definitely like I'm quite good at making myself do something if I like committed to it. But like I think it was like a bit of an eye opener in like the importance of like contentment in why I was doing it, or like maybe I was questioning myself throughout that whole process anyway.
It sounds like there was a few factors, but do you think it would be possible for you to like set a boulder problem as a goal that you hadn't tried before and have a better mindset around it? Or do you think you really need to have tried something to have that inspiration to have the right mindset?
Yeah, it's an interesting question that. I think it would be hard not having even seen the thing. Like, because then like obviously you can see pictures and like it depends how much you know about it. Like I
You've
guess
seen
like
the videos of Gnarly, right?
yeah, that's true.
But it's so different. Like you don't get a sense of the feel of it, do you? Like until you
Yeah,
actually touch it, like you don't. And so people have different styles. So like, you know, you might climb it completely different from him. So
yeah,
it's only some information still.
it's really hard to predict. Yeah, I don't know. It is quite hard to know. I mean, like I think it would probably be easier if like the leading source of inspiration wasn't related to like difficulty. So like I could commit to like have something as a goal, which I maybe like know is an amazing historic climb. I'm just trying to think like an example might be like I've not climbed Careless Talk. Ironically, I've not climbed it. I've never tried it, but like it's quite a strange one. Yeah, I might be like, oh,
It looks cool.
I really want to do that. It looks cool. Like it's a bit. I think when difficulty.
What's wrong with difficulty as being the leading source of inspiration?
No, I don't think it. I don't think it's wrong. But like,
right.
I think before trying something, it'll be hard for that to like. It'd be hard for me to know it'd be passionate. I think like basically with difficulty being like the leading like factor, chances are you're probably going to have to spend a lot more time invested in it. Like I might be like, oh, I want to do Careless Talk is a goal of mine. However, I know I'll probably like I'll have a. I mean, I might not do it quickly, but like
Chances are you would.
I feel like I'd have a chance at doing it like within a few sessions, or like I wouldn't have to get much better. Whereas if I'm like, Burden of Dreams, like I might spend years training for that, and like it's like a big proportion of my life that I've got to commit to this thing. So I think with like when you're committing to something ambitious because it's really hard, like it's very hard to know if you like going to be inspired by it.
Yeah. I mean, is that something on its own? Like, because, you know, I noticed like a few years ago that I'd never really like properly like projected something. Like, you know, I'd had projects, but like I hadn't tried something for multiple seasons, for example.
Yeah.
So that's when I was like, oh, I'm going to try Magic Line, because I was like, that thing's really hard. Like that's bound to take me multiple seasons. And like, that was definitely part of the motivation. I also had just seen it and it looked really cool, and, you know, all the other things. But that was actually part of the inspiration, that it would push me more than something else.
Yeah.
Whereas like the difference between Careless Talk and Burden of Dreams, like that's obviously one of the biggest differences. Like you're not going to have to adapt yourself to get up Careless Talk. But like, did you know that you'd have to adapt yourself before climbing Burden of Dreams?
No, not entirely. I think part of me thought that I could like, fit that into my niche. And I think, you are right. Like I would like, really interested in like kind of, or like, I think it's a very like human thing, right? To be driven to find your like potential, or like get really near to your like limit within anything you do. Like you kind of want to.
Is that not what mastery is?
Yeah. But like, you could define mastery, through that. But then like, if you kind of define it through that, like perhaps my absolute limit of potential on small holds is like way harder than like some slopey compression thing. And like,
it's totally subjective, isn't it? Because like my conception of mastery, coming from the climber that I am, is someone who can like just walk up to any piece of rock and get up it.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you know what I mean? Because I, you know, I'm, you know, more into different types of climbing, and like alpinism a little bit. I suppose it was mostly rock climbing, but like, you know, that's kind of like a master is someone who can get up the thing,
adapt to any terrain kind of stuff.
Yeah. Like, so I obviously just have quite a broad idea, whereas like you're coming from a different perspective. And I feel like both are valid, right? Because at the end of the day, you're driven by your conception, right?
Yeah. And I'm definitely like, I'm more towards detail. So like generally, because like being good at everything is a like opportunity cost of being much better at one thing, it almost means that like, because I'm like more defined mastery through detail, it's like kind of very different in that like I'd almost like think of mastery as like perfecting one specific thing, which is usually at the cost of being good at all of the rest of the stuff. So I wouldn't say like, I don't know, like a master of compression bouldering would be able to pick up some ice axes and make their way up.
But it's still all moving up rock. You know, I don't count the ice axes. Ice climbing is something different. But it's you know, like compression is kind of different for crimps, but it's still moving up the rock, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And like, I think a master of the sport is someone who like moves up the rock really well and like is good at that.
Like a speed climber, they move up the rock really quickly.
Not quickly. Well,
okay.
I mean, that's why I think Alex Honnold is like such a master, because like, you know, he really can't. He's not that strong, you know, like he's strong, but he's, you know, compared to you, he's like, you know, like it's just incomparable. But like he climbs so efficiently. Do you know what I mean? Like it's insane how efficient he climbs and how trusting he is in his body and how in control he is when he climbs.
Yeah.
It's a different type of mastery to what you're looking for, but like,
I would still
in that.
Yeah, I'd still very much say that Alex is a master within the things he does. I just wouldn't say like
He's definitely not a master boulderer.
Or like to be a master within climbing, you have to free solo hellcat. I wouldn't say that, like, as in I'd say that well, I wouldn't say, it's a weird thing. If you call someone a master, it kind of like almost like implies that they like have achieved mastery, which I don't think any like
True,
really people
yeah,
have.
it's a weird thing, yeah.
Yeah, very specific to everyone's little avenue of climbing.
Yeah. But how small do you draw that avenue, right? So like you want to perfect that one specific thing. Like if you get too narrow, it's literally just like, okay, find that 45-degree wall and then pick the crimps that are the most small.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, is that not really boring? Like, is that not just reducing climbing down to like such basics?
Yeah. I mean,
but you're like, no, that's what I want.
that's the life of a boulder, you know. That's a dream. You look for that kind of thing.
But you can make it on your home board.
It's true. It doesn't quite have the same meaning. I always bang on about the timeless nature of rock, but I think there's something a bit more like permanent about that. But yeah, I mean, like if we want to delve into like the discussion of like the meaning of our sport in general, like, or just in anything we do, like I think it's sometimes a bit dangerous to try and rationalize why we do things in general. Like we do, like our profession is climbing up bits of rock. Like
it's quite ridiculous.
It's quite ridiculous, and I absolutely love it. But like,
it is ridiculous.
There's no denying.
But is it though? It's ridiculous, but it's not, because like I don't know how much you've read about flow state and stuff like that, but like there's such intrinsic enjoyment in trying to master something. It's like where like we are absolute happiest.
Yeah.
When we master stuff.
Yeah, I do agree. I don't mean to invalidate our profession in this sense. Like I do think like, as in like on a basic level, like I guess like humans survive, and we've kind of like done very well at that, like as a society. Like not that we've completed it, but like most people don't go about their lives like waking up hoping that they can survive that day. Like we're usually like pretty comfortable in the things we do, so it gives us a lot of freedom to like kind of find what really inspires us and like what really makes us happy. And I like absolutely love climbing, like or like in all its forms, like kind of the movement of it, the variation, like the way it connects us with the natural world, the like places it takes us, the people are even pretty good, like all of it. Like I'm so passionate about it, and like kind of I don't want to invalidate, like so many other people are as well. I don't want to invalidate that just because we're climbing up rocks. Like in like a society perspective, like people kicking around an inflated ball are like glorified. like we can't get too caught up in why we do stuff. So like I think you're right. If you find something which makes you incredibly happy, I think you needn't question it too much, like from an existential perspective. But yeah, you mentioned flow state, which I think is quite an interesting concept. I guess like I'm never actually entirely sure how generally people would define flow state, because it almost has implications of like you let your body do the work kind of thing. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean there are definitions like somewhat connected to like the research and stuff, and that there's like clear like components of flow, which are generally like how it actually feels in the moment. So it's like it's really absorbing, totally focused on what you're doing. Like time seems to alter in some ways. You usually speeds up, but it can also slow. But there's a sense of time altering, and you feel like things can feel like kind of automatic and like effortless, despite the fact that what you're doing is really challenging. They're like the kind of like the hallmarks of flow. And then there's like some like neurological things as well, like measuring flow from a physiological perspective is actually kind of hard, but it turns out that like you can actually measure heart rate variability, and it can be quite a good predictor of whether you're in flow or not.
Okay, yeah, I think that like kind of time, or like I think the state part of it, like I really resonates with me. Like so like usually I'm quite like, okay, on the scale of like how intuitive to deliberate I move, I'm usually quite deliberate and like will be quite specific, like obviously not entirely just because it's so complex, but like I can be like, I'll often, when I'm figuring out certain moves, I'll be very calculated, and like there'll be like certain things which like will almost be, I like have little indicators which I like kind of memorize when I'm like learning moves. So like I might get quite specific with the details to like the specific moves, but I like kind of usually have quite a lot of that I actively think about when I do the moves, and it feels to me like it reduces a lot of my random error. So like in terms of like the flow side of things, where like perhaps like in a more like romanticized way, you might think that like you just let your body do the work and it's like you don't even realize what you're doing. It's kind of beautiful. Like I don't really feel that so much. Usually I'm like my brain's doing little, like I'm a bit more robotic, like the cogs are turning and I'm like thinking about all I'm doing. But like in order to get to that point where like it doesn't feel like I memorize those things. It's not like I'm like on the wall thinking about, oh, so like I've got 6 things to remember for the next move. Like, and like I find that I do enter a different like kind of state when I'm actually like kind of trying to execute those things, in that like I will spend a lot of time like kind of understand it in like the working process. But when I actually sit down to like give it my attempts, like the level of focus I have to get myself into is like pretty intense. Like it doesn't feel very easy to achieve. And like I feel like I've got to have a lot of these points which I can retain for each move, but like I've got to have them in a way that I haven't really memorized them, but like when I get to that move, I know like I kind of like they're all in my mind at the same time, but I don't have to be like setting up for one move being like, oh, I've got to remember the these things for the next move. Like it's all like kind of just like information which like I've learned, like it, like I really just like know it. And that like focus, like I find is like something that I really have to actively attempt to like get into. So like I would never listen to music, or like I find it hard if people are talking or like chatting, like joke. I mean, I'd never tell people not to talk, obviously, get the crack. I'd probably tell people not to switch music off if they're playing that, but that's a different thing. But like I definitely find like it's a real active effort to get into that state of focus. And like I again use like certain mechanisms like breath work, and I have little like routines as well of like kind of just
like rituals almost.
Yeah, rituals, and it'll come to like cleaning each hold, ensuring like all my little tick marks are in the right place, like making sure my shoes are clean, like kind of getting everything right, like so I have some peace of mind that nothing else, like I've reduced all the factors which could go wrong.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
There's like, yeah, those rituals. And that level of focus definitely like feels, it does feel quite surreal then, my relationship with time. So like I have that level of like calculation that maybe slightly contradicts like the idea of just absolute flow. But like I think the result of that, like lots of those things going on, usually then if it all goes right and I like can execute those well, like the climb usually then flows quite well because like everything goes well. It's not like I'm having to like kind of scrap my way up it. Like usually it's all quite like well understood and I can move quite well through it. So like maybe like physically, like it might look like a state of flow, but like mentally it feels a lot less like it flowed, like in a psychological way. But the state I definitely notice, like it's very rare that it feels very meditative. Like it's very rare that I get into that state. And I actually find I get that state of focus through like a very relaxed state of mind. Like I don't, some people like to amp themselves up and stuff, but I really don't really find that. So I get like kind of into that focus through relaxation.
I'm the same, yeah.
So yeah, I guess maybe in like an unconventional manner, I could somewhat claim that flow state, but
yeah, it's really funny hearing people's different accounts of it. The thing is, like, I think what people maybe don't understand about flow is like they think it's this like extreme state, like, but I think there's actually levels of flow, and I would say it sounds to me from what you've been describing that like you're in somewhat of a low level of flow, like in that process, like before you even start the climb, right? Like the brushing of the holds, like you're so focused in that like that is flow. And I found that in bouldering, and like that, like just not the time that you're on the rock that's the only time that you could access flow. It's definitely like the prepping and like the working out and the like all of that. And also like what I really love about bouldering is that like you can sometimes get into almost like this group flow with the people you're climbing with. Like, I don't know, it's like you're bouncing the ideas off each other and like and sharing the beta. Like,
yeah,
there's something about the whole day that's like almost flow like when a session is really good.
Yeah, it can be like quite like it can feel like a bit like a nice communal. Everyone brushes the holes.
Yeah,
For everyone.
collaborative. Like, yeah.
Yeah, everyone takes a moment of silence when somebody's trying really hard. Or not,
I think my days out bouldering are probably a bit less serious than yours.
I can be light-hearted affairs every now and again.
But it's interesting what you're saying, because like I feel like I access flow more like the less I think about it, almost like the fewer number of thoughts that I have in my mind, it like correlates with how like in flow I am. And I feel like I get more in flow like on sighting, flashing. And like for me, like the real hallmark of flow is like when you come out of that flow state, you're like, what the hell just happened? Like,
yeah,
what happened? Like, how did I do that move? Like for me, that's like the key indicator is like the surprise and the awe of like what my body just did. Cause it's almost like my body did something that like I wasn't even like the author of.
yeah. It's like
I don't know if you have that.
No, I do. I definitely had that. Like, I don't know if this is kind of the same thing. There's a lot of times where like it's strange because like I kind of I can like have done the moves on a climb and like kind of be giving good attempts, but quite often I'll do a climb and like I'd say I'm surprised. Like I was like I'll be like really like pretty shocked that I've done it, or like a little bit of disbelief, which so I climb quite a lot with Sam Lawson, who films those wedge videos, and he often picks me up on it because often I'm like, wow, I can't believe I've just done that, and he's like, I was like, oh, I didn't expect that at all, and I'll be like, why not? Surely you should. Like, you nearly did it last session, and like you've been working on it for a few days. Like, surely you should expect to do that. But I so regularly have like a certain like disbelief about like the things that I have done, and it is strange because like it's genuinely like surprise, and I'm genuinely like it's unexpected. But you'd think now that I'd kind of like have done that process enough times that I'd be like, oh, I probably actually can do this. And like, well, it's not that I don't believe I could do it beforehand, but it's just like
it's different. It's a different feeling, isn't it? It's not like, oh, it's not the same cognitive process of like, okay, let's take bets on whether you'll do it or not. It's like the sensation of climbing the boulder in all together, having not done that before. There's something like shockingly cool about it. Like, I don't know, that's how it feels to me anyway. Like there's something that like, because the actual linking of the boulder or the climb or whatever is like more than the sum of the individual moves.
Yeah.
You know? So it's like, it's just something like, but it must be annoying for the people around you because they're like, Like we all knew you would do that.
Yeah, shut up. Yeah. No, I do know exactly what you mean. I'm like, yeah, I'm not quite sure. I guess like
Is a master someone who's in flow like all the time, or like if you mastered the sport more? Because then it takes the like idea of difficulty out of it, doesn't it? Like, you know, can you be a bit like those the old French guys and
oh yeah,
girls, probably, I don't know, who were like in the forest in Fontainebleau, like, you know, if they're like just in flow moving up the wall all the time, like, is that what mastery is, even if they're moving up like 6 Cs and not 8 Cs? I don't know.
yeah. No, I do know what you mean. I definitely think there's like it would be a pretty incredible thing, like to be able to experience that like feeling every attempt you have within climbing. I also don't know how like necessary, or I also don't know how like effective it is. Like I don't know how much in that state you will learn much about the individual moves or like the specifics of the climb. So I definitely feel like when I'm like figuring out individual moves on the climb, I'm not in that state at all, because I'm like kind of like
You're more analytical.
intensely puzzling. Yeah.
But isn't there some degree of flow in that intensely puzzling? Like, you're a mathematician, right? That's what you did your studies in.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
is
yeah.
it a bit like a maths problem where you can like, and actually there's like really cool stuff on this in neuroscience to do with hemispheres and stuff, but like that analytical ability like is like left hemisphere stuff. But like seeing like the maths problem as a whole is like more like intuitive right hemisphere. It's more like flowy.
Yeah,
Like,
okay.
so like, you know, obviously like when you approach a boulder problem, like you want to be analytical and like break it down and like really look at those like individual details. But then there's also going to be some degree of like intuition and like seeing it as more than that in that process. Like, is there not some level of flow in that process of being analytical?
I didn't actually know about the neuroscience left and right hemisphere, which, yeah, kind of does feel, I can kind of like, that does like the idea resonate with me a little bit, in that like, I definitely feel like it's very, even though the very analytical stage of working a climb, like, is very much like reflected in the time when like I will give things attempt, like the information that I kind of acquire in that like understanding like phase of a climb is something that I very much like very consciously apply to my execution attempts. But like the feeling, like the mindset feeling of actually doing it is very different. So that would make sense in terms of like kind of like the more intuition of that data, like as a whole, being like a slightly different state. But I guess like that would be like part of that process, right? Like kind of analyzing and understanding and then applying with the intuition to that like kind of more complex puzzle as a whole.
You're also like deeply absorbed in that process, like even though it's analysis and it's like thinking and it feels more cognitive and problem solving, like you're still also like just deeply absorbed in that.
Yeah.
So it's still not, even though it might not be like super flowy, it's also not the opposite of flow, which is distraction.
Yeah, like it's quite a meditative thing. Like I definitely find climbing is like the format in which I'm most able to like kind of focus most specifically, like probably even more so than I did when doing maths. Like I'm probably more able to be like single focused when it comes to my climbing, which is actually like quite an amazing experience. It's like so rare that you end up so intent on like a single activity. It is like quite meditative for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's probably what is so enjoyable about it, right?
Yeah. Dave, definitely very captivating.
Yeah.
No, it definitely feels like a meditative process at times.
Yeah. Well, we've been chatting for a while.
Yeah. They
And
always
I
go
feel
on a
like
bit.
I could keep going on forever, but maybe that's a nice place to end it.
Yeah, no, they can always go on a little longer than you expect.
Like an hour and 20 minutes longer.
Oops.
No, I basically like budget at least an hour and a half, 2 hours
Yeah.
for these things now, because as much as I'm like, oh, this could be a short one, it never is.
Yeah. Tangents occur, hey? No, but no, I really enjoyed chatting through this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I feel like we could chat again as well. Like, there's definitely things on my list that we didn't even get to.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks so much for that. And let's chat again.
Thank you for the interesting questions. It's always nice, thought-provoking.
Yeah, that's what I'm aiming for here. Hopefully you noticed.
Yeah, no.